Today's topic is all about networking, and if we go a little bit deeper, it's about building your positive network of support. So not only is it about networking, but making sure that this network of support that we are creating and building is positive. This is, again, for those of you who are coming back, you'll remember this. Otherwise, if you're new, this is a brand new initiative Service Dress for Success has because of the St. Louis Park Family Services Collaborative and because of Hennepin County Library and the program. The classes are now, as you probably found, advertised and promoted through the St. Louis Park Community Education Program. Super exciting initiative, brand new. Quick question before we get going too much with the slides. Who here enjoys networking? And some people, it just comes naturally. They love to connect. They love to self-promote. It comes naturally. Is also the importance of nurturing your network after you get a job and staying in touch and connected with those individuals who helped you, who you help. Because so often we'll get a job and then we'll think, oh, I don't have to network anymore. I'm good. Well, how many of you have gotten a job and then gotten laid off just a few months later? The global concern about networking is that I don't want to come off like a telemarketer, like a solicitor, annoying other people. Networking as an essential part of job search, depending on what position you land, an essential part of your job too. It can be, depends. Some experts say that 70% of people ended up in their current position thanks to networking. That's a huge amount of people. And then others say it's more like 80 to 85%. It is always shifting and changing based on, it's based on current situations. It's also based on the field of work you're in. And so one thing I'd love for you all to really think about and examine is depending on the work, the job field, the job titles you're seeking, the organizations you're going after, how important is networking to landing a job? So I really want you to examine that, because if you're going for an executive director or a CEO position in nearly every capacity, networking is probably closer to 100%. If you're going for VP, if you're going for that high level C-suite, any type of position that's very influential, you're going to have to be able to network to find that opportunity. And then, if they're hiring someone, they're going to want to be able to tap your network and reputation for feedback. Now, that said, I'm curious, and Martha, if you don't mind, maybe I just pick on you. How essential is networking to getting a job at, like, for instance, the Hennepin County Library System? Did you have to network pretty heavily to get that job?
I did, fortunately, I really enjoy my field a lot. And so I really enjoy talking to people who work in libraries. So that helps with my sort of innate shyness and introvertness. But I just wrote in the chat, everybody knows everybody in libraries in the Twin Cities. I'm always going to run into someone who knows me or someone who knows someone who knows me. So being proactive about networking has really helped. And it's really helped me too in the interview process. Not that I will ask people to reveal any, top secret information, but to talk to somebody who works at that workplace and get a sense of where they're coming from is really helpful.
Well, that's great. I appreciate that feedback. And I think, it's networking is about, sometimes it's about learning about job opportunities, and sometimes it's about finding out who your connections are that may influence whether your resume gets 30 seconds looked at it or 3 minutes or 3 hours. So there's various levels of how does networking influence the job search? Hidden job market. So these are the jobs that are not explicitly advertised or promoted for the public. They're not on Indeed. They're not on job boards. They're not, for me coming out of high school, college, they're not in newspaper ads, right? Anybody remember that? The want ads? They are not necessarily out there for the public. They might not actually be actual jobs yet. They might not even have job position descriptions. They may just be a concept in the back of someone's mind wherever they're working. They might not even have a budget attached to them yet. They might not know how much they could pay someone that. They have the money. They're starting to formulate what that job is that will help their company meet needs or continue to grow. They're just kind of waiting for the right person to emerge. And so that is the place where you truly could have a lot of impact. And that is kind of the supreme place of networking, is having enough connections and contacts at organizations that are about to be in rapid growth mode that you could quickly onboard. Because a lot of times they, the whole process of putting out a job description and interview, going through 200 resumes and then interviewing, that takes months and months of time actually. Now that depends, I'm just going to bench it on, it depends on the organization and their requirements for equal opportunity hiring. So in a government setting, hidden job markets are much harder to find because they need to go through all of those protocols. In large corporations, same thing. They got to go through all the protocols. The place where you find the hidden job market in particular really, really hot is in a small to mid-sized company in rapid growth mode, because they are ready to move and they don't necessarily have to go through all of the big steps. So there is an estimation that 80% of jobs are filled internally or via networking. So let's talk about internally. We just did something called a virtual day of success with a company called Minnetonka Moccasins. Anybody know Minnetonka Moccasins? Those really nice, comfortable moccasins. Apparently their sales are like you have never seen before, because, and especially in the slipper area, all those remote workers, they want to stay comfortable and they get to work from home. Also those moccasins, they have been changing their design so that they are a little more professional looking and less, slipperish too. So anyways, they're in rapid growth mode. That's one of those small companies in rapid growth mode. Now, the thing is, at present, most of their opportunities are warehouse and customer service. And those are real common places to have openings. That said, so it was really cool. We had one of our longtime clients on the call yesterday who has a design background, has a sales background in various different ways of her life. She actually had been working and doing selling for Birkenstock shoes. So she has shoe sales in her experience wheel. She has retail. She has design and fashion. Minnetonka Moccasin does not have any design, fashion, or sales positions at present. However, she's going to apply for a customer service position, and she's going to learn about that company. I'm pretty darn sure she'll get the job. She's definitely qualified. And she knows that it's a starting point. It's a foot in the door. And so we might look at applying for a job that's like, this is not my dream job. It's not my dream job. This is where I want to be. But that opportunity isn't there yet. I know it's a good company. And so knowing that companies like Minnetonka Moccasins, and most companies, I'll be honest, like to hire internally because they're trying you out first, right? Before they're committing to a bigger job. A lot of companies like to hire contractors first, because then if it doesn't work out, it's not such a big deal. So be thinking about that. Getting a referral from someone who's already working at or with the organization significantly increases chances for interviewing and landing a job. Around at least 70, if not 80% of jobs are not even published. Yet most people, so this is where I want you guys to think really, really long and hard. Most people are spending 70 to 80% or more of their time surfing the net and applying for jobs on job posting boards, Indeed, etc., versus getting out there talking to employers, taking chances, realizing that the vast majority of hiring is friends and acquaintances, hiring other friends and acquaintances. If you are spending 70% or more of your job search time doing something that is not as effective and spending 30% or less of your time doing something that is more effective, we really need to flip that, right? It's a good visual, isn't it? We need to flip it. Does your job search time match your job landing success statistics? Just that question. Or how many of you, I'm so guilty of this, are falling down the rabbit hole of online applications. You're spending a lot of time filling out applications and then not hearing anything back, or getting a lot of, sorry, but no, we found someone. It's pretty common. It's pretty common. So job applications are, of course, important, but you need to do them in tandem with connecting with individuals at the organization you're applying. That's your formula for success. There is networking, connections, and job applications. Okay, let's talk about warm versus cold contacts. What is the difference? That piece about a cold call versus a warm contact. What's the difference? Well, your warm contact are individuals who already know you and hopefully like you, right? They, who makes up your network. So this is really important for all of you to truly examine, who's in your network, family, friends. Who wants you employed more than anyone? Your family, right? Because it means less support they maybe need to give you, or less, right? They want to see you employed, right? Friends, your coworkers, your colleagues, your supervisors, either currently if you're working now and you're looking for another job, or in the past. That said, I will also acknowledge that sometimes when we're employed and doing job search, we need to keep it separated. We don't necessarily want our colleagues, coworkers, supervisors at the moment knowing we're looking for another opportunity that could jeopardize our current employment, right? So we get that. I get that it could be of concern. Sometimes you have that concern, sometimes you don't. Classmates, high school and college alumni offices. If you graduated from a college, 2-year, 4-year, what have you, be reaching out to that alumni office and asking about, are there vehicles for networking and how do I do that? Neighbors, religious community, and other organizations. I have to tell you one thing that's been just absolutely eye-opening since I started at Dress, which is, it's coming on 2 years now, so not a long time, but I cannot get over how many individuals come to Dress for Success to volunteer, to help us out, both men and women, to volunteer. They help out because they are currently in job search themselves. And sometimes they're receiving unemployment insurance, so they have a buffer, maybe they have some savings, and they want to restore themselves. They want to give back to the community. They want to take a brain break from the fast-paced world and getting laid off, and they have that ability. Or they want to gain new skills, or they want to gain new connections. So we get a lot of individuals who are in job search mode themselves, volunteering, building up their resume, building up their connections, and those are the individuals who find job the fastest. I kid you not, they just almost 100% of the time, if somebody comes in, they're like, yeah, I just got laid off, I'd like to volunteer and help out, and I'm looking for a job, but I'm gonna wait 2 or 3 weeks till my brain is just a little more freshened up, and then I'm gonna go. Well, what I see as they're volunteering is they're connecting and networking with each other. And of course, I egg them on. I'm like, you should meet so-and-so, you should meet so-and-so. And I've seen so many people get jobs that way as they're cross-connecting with people. So I do want to push to you that you think about volunteering for community organizations to also meet individuals. Volunteering does not have to take up a huge amount of time. Volunteering looks a lot different than it did 10, 20, 30 years ago. In particular, like Dress for Success, we have opportunities where you can volunteer, once a week for 5 hours, or once a week for 1 hour or less. And then, maybe 1 week you get busy and then you come back a month later. Like, we have what I call plug and play opportunities. Not every organization has that, but you can look for opportunities like that because, maybe you're working a part-time job or taking care of a family member, your time is constrained. But even if you can just do an hour here or there, that's going to be good. All right, anybody know these local celebrities? Have you heard them speak or read their book? Marsha Ballinger and Nathan Perez wrote the 20-minute networking meeting. There's a couple of different versions of the book. There's an executive level, there's a college student level. I'm just going to do a plug here for the Hennepin County Library System. You can order it and pick it up. Or I'm pretty sure it's audiobook also if you have that capability. It's a great read. And the concept is that, you only need 20 minutes to network with someone over the phone or less. Like, it does not have to be sit down, have coffee for an hour or two and ask someone lots and lots of questions. You can make this really accessible and easy for the other person. And the thing to know about this type of networking and connecting with other professionals is that for the most part, and Stephen, you may know this or may not, but people like talking about themselves. And if you can come at asking someone if they're willing to connect with you. So this is another thing, that word networking, totally overused. It is kind of a turnoff. I'm going to guess it's a turnoff for some of you in the room. It could be a turnoff for people you approach. But using more general terms like connecting, learning about your organization, things like that, learning about your career path, having a sincere, true interest in someone else's journey is, most people love and adore that. Not a lot of people are asking other people to talk about themselves in this day and age. And so I will say, for the most part, when somebody asks, if I have a student, I'll just say a student reach out to me. We have lots of college students that are interning, volunteering, and for them, I know that they have a requirement to do an informational interview with a staff member at Dress for Success. And those students who come to me and say, I'm just really interested in learning about your career path and how you landed where you're at now and where you're hoping to go, versus I'm supposed to do this informational interview, or I should probably network with you. That just sounds like a chore. But if somebody has a sincere interest in me, oh, my little ego is like, oh, I'm flattered. I'd love to tell you about me and my journey. So think about it in those terms. What knowledge, experience do you have that you could share with someone else? What do you have to offer? Because you know what? You all have so much to offer someone else.
Somebody reach out to you for an informational interview, or maybe you wish someone would. What would you share with those people? I'll just say for me, it's really lucky for me because I love my job. And because I love my job, it's really easy for me to talk with people about it. And it's really easy for me to tell people what I've seen folks do in libraries that works and what doesn't work, especially with their job searches. And, maybe I can save some people from making mistakes that I've made or I've seen other people make. So I bet that some of you have similar experiences. I'm thinking that there's some more people in the room here who probably do have more to share, but they maybe don't think they do. They think, oh, I don't have like a high-ranking, exciting job, or who would care about this, or, but I think, that informational.
It could be your hobby. It could be, your social connections. It could be organizations you belong to. It doesn't have to be necessarily work experience. It could have been a topic you studied in high school or college. when you do connect with individuals, informational interview. So that this is, and I'll be sending you this list of questions after the session. These are kind of my core questions I like to ask somebody if I'm learning about their career path in particular. How did you learn about this position that you're in? What does a typical day look like? What tasks do you work on? How did you gain that experience and education you needed for this position? What are the biggest challenges you face in this position? I think that's a number one question for anybody you're talking to, is to really get an idea of what the challenges are. And then asking for advice about looking for positions. What is something you know now that you wish you had known earlier? So it's all about them and their experience. Now, this is a really, 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 really important question. What kind of wage or salary could I expect starting out in this field? So you're not asking them, how much money do you make? Unfortunately, sadly, wrongly, in our culture and in our workplace, people tend to, for the most part, find the topic of salary, wage, taboo. And so when you put somebody on the spot, they will sometimes get really uncomfortable because they'll feel like, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to share that. That's, with my company and this or that. And personally, I feel very strongly and differently about that. I feel like we should be open and talking, because I think the more we open and talk about it, the less pay inequity would happen. That said, when you're going into an informational interview, you don't want to stir up or shut down someone who's at a different opinion place than I am, which is probably most everybody. And so asking that question, what kind of wage or salary could I expect getting into this field? You should get a pretty accurate idea of what you could expect, because they're in the field. They can give you, what they know. And it's going to be a lot more accurate information than looking it up online on ONET and all those places, because sometimes they, even in the same market, wage and salaries can be different between different organizations. I know at Surly they have like a beer allowance, so maybe they don't pay as much, but you get a pack of beer. I mean, I don't know. Every organization has different benefit packages and so forth. Would you recommend anyone else I could talk to? So you're continuing that connection. And is there anything I can do to assist you now or in the future? That's always a great question, Janet, to ask. I keep picking on you, Janet, because I know you brought that up, is what can I offer to others? And so be thinking about, just asking the question. Like, you might not know right now what I can bring to the table, but if there's anything now, or if you think of in the future, I am willing to pay back, reciprocate, and help you any way I can. Which questions to ask? One, I think it depends on how much time and energy. And I would say with those questions, pick and choose what are most important to you and what is a best fit. So if that advice about the 3 questions, that's great. But it's nice, personally, I kind of like having those questions in my wheelhouse to pick and choose from as what becomes appropriate and helpful in the conversation. And those are the areas that I just kind of, over the years, as I looked at all these different informational interview questions, I find myself asking time and time again. But I do think it's important that you don't just ask them, 20 questions or 10. I like the idea of narrowing it down. It's going to be less overwhelming to them. But just know you can pick and choose from that list. And I'm sure there'll be other questions you want to ask too. The more you can get that informational interview into a conversation or a discussion too, the faster that you can really get into like kind of some heavier topics around challenges and where they're, figuring out where their interest areas are, the more engaged they're going to be too. Okay. That's a way to really warm up a cold contact. Now, that takes a little while. One thing we do here at Dress for Success is really work hard to build up that positive network of support. So we have what's called these virtual days of success, where you get on and you meet virtually now in Zoom, staff from different organizations, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Medtronic. We had one with Apple computers, and we had one with Minnetonka Moccasins. We have, what are the other ones coming up here? Adecco, it's an IT consulting firm. I'm trying to think. We've got some really cool ones coming up here in the next couple of, the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce. So those are opportunities for our clients. Now, I think Career Force has some also opportunities for those kind of networking too. So I really encourage you to do that. And in those networking opportunities, even though those are cold contacts, they're set you up in a warm environment that is welcoming to networking. And one thing I want, because this is a natural bridge here, is this piece about to connect with connectors. Who are connectors? Who are people who like Uber connectors? They love to connect. Actually, no, Martha Hardy is one of those. And I'll throw myself into this bucket too. I do love to connect. My purpose is I love to connect people who I think if I help you connect, like Sarah, if I help you connect with a virtual assistant, that feels really good. That's a purpose for me. That's not just connecting for the sake of connecting. That's like connecting with purpose and cause. So find those people. And I mean, what are they? 1 out of every 50 people you meet, or 1 out of whatever. They're not every person you meet, but they just innately, like they get up in the morning and they're like little matchmakers. They just love to find people who have connecting causes. You can find them on LinkedIn pretty easy. They're those folks who have connections of over 500 or more. That means they're spending a significant amount of time just like, hey, it's fun to connect. They love building their own network. They enjoy helping others connect. They don't expect you to be perfect or polished when you meet. They're much more open. So who you know me now, you know Martha now. Who of you know someone who you would consider to be one of these Uber connectors? Anybody out there? The biggest problem with Uber connectors is they tend to get themselves real darn busy. And so sometimes the piece is more about like, how do I get on their radar and connect and make time? They have time for me. So connectors are not always the best people for informational interviews. I will tell you that, because if they're getting real crazy busy, they might not have as much time. But simply connecting with them in whatever format they like to connect. You know, maybe it's really think about what topics of interest you have professionally and follow on LinkedIn in particular, or individuals who put out, their own writing, or they share items and articles on LinkedIn that have to do with the field of interest that you have. And then you'll kind of start to see who's popping up over and over, who's always pushing that like button, who's sharing what. So connect with the connectors. All right. Now, I want to bridge into this concept of personal branding. It's been around for 20 or more years. It's been a big thing. It's how do we as job search candidates best position ourselves to stand out and to differentiate from another candidate, and to have a personal brand or a reputation that proceeds us into a job search and so forth. So a lot of times people will spend quite a bit of time thinking about their personal brand. They might do the StrengthsFinder assessment and articulate, what do they bring to the table. And it really grew out of the idea of just plain out consumer branding. Is, why do you choose Heinz ketchup versus the generic Cub ketchup? Why do you instinctively go towards something that you've never had the product before, but the brand, or you go to that brand over and over because you trust it, because there's something about it that feels comfortable and familiar. So that there's billions of dollars spent on researching brand and getting just the right verbiage and pictures and colors, right? And so, you can use some of that knowledge to help you differentiate. And branding can be about, the words you use to describe yourself when you are with your resume. It can be about your elevator pitch, right? That elevator pitch is when you have the opportunity, you're meeting someone, that you can succinctly share what you bring to the table and what you are looking for. So thing people have been talking about for a while, which is the idea that you get into an elevator with somebody, and that could be, just a cold contact, somebody you work with that you don't really know well, and that within an elevator's ride's time, 30 seconds or whatever, right? How do we succinctly convey to someone we're first meeting what we can bring to the table in a networking situation? For the final part of our networking session here today, let's talk about online networking. And it depends on your field of work too. That's the thing I will just say is, depending on your field of work, that will dictate which type of social media you would use. And some of them might be, if you're in marketing, you're probably going to use all the social media, but it depends on your industry. The big ones are Facebook, Twitter. I would also add Instagram, and then LinkedIn. Any business professional, though, I think you're going to want to focus primarily on LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time. Facebook tends to be a little bit more about personal connections and so forth, whereas LinkedIn is much more about the business piece. If anybody's interested. Martha, do you know, would you say for anybody who wants to be a librarian or work in the Hennepin County Library System, is there a tool that is better for networking than others? Oh, you're not. Oh, you're mute.
Yeah, there we go. Twitter is really big with library people, and
I didn't know that.
I found it really useful actually during conferences or events. When people tweet comments about the conference itself, it's a great way to meet people. So I'll meet somebody live and realize that I read their tweets, and I can say, hey, I saw you were posting about that workshop you were in earlier today. What was that like? Or what did you think of the keynote speaker? And it gives me sort of an entree to talk to that person in real life.
Nice. So that's a hook. It's really a hook. Okay. And also that's so fascinating. I had no idea that Twitter is the social media kind of tool of choice, or it's gonna get you the most traction of connection for anybody in the library world. That's so interesting. Cool. Sarah, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn for life coaches, mindfulness, affirmation, and courses. That's really interesting. I've seen a lot more on both Facebook and LinkedIn where they're promoting watch this free seminar I have and then contact me for services. I'm seeing a lot more of that now since June. So interesting. Introverts are really good at networking with sincere, authentic connections. And I want you guys to know that if you feel like, I'm introverted, I don't like to network. Well, the thing is, you might not call it networking, but I know that the majority of people that consider themselves more introverted, meaning that they are energized from within versus from people, like outside sources of information. They need some solitude, they need to collect their thoughts. I also know they are amazingly great, deep, sincere connectors. And in this day and age, I think that's what the majority of us want more than ever, is a true, deep connection. And it is hard to do. It is hard to do virtually. It is harder. But once we do it, once we really focus on it and we make those connections. So just another piece about connecting and networking is it does make us face rejection. We will, and it depends on how you define rejection. If you define rejection as, I sent in a request to connect and somebody didn't get back to me. That feels like rejection. That can be really painful, especially for an introvert, right? And so I want to just have this conversation about when we feel rejected in the job search. We don't get a job, somebody doesn't have time or doesn't connect back to us. And the ability to be resilient and push past that and to go, okay, something's up with them. Might be they check their LinkedIn account once a year. I think a lot of it too about the networking stuff is I want you to think about it as a buffet. And that's one of the things is how do we get outside of our comfort zone? Because at the end of the day, that's what networking is. It's pushing us outside our comfort zone. And who likes going outside their comfort zone? Said no one ever. Most of us get really uncomfortable meeting strangers and moving from that warm network to the cold network. So that's building your positive network of support. I want to kind of finish up on two different notes here. The importance of continuing your network and nurturing your network after you land your job. It's really important. It's in a respect, it's insurance. It's that you are staying in sincere connection. And personally, I focus on 5 to 10 individuals a year that I make sure I'm consistently connecting with. And it might be, twice a year I connect with them. But that I'm like, they're the people who have put their reputation on the line for me. They have given me good references, and I check in and I say, hey, I'm still at this job. I love it. Thank you again for the connection. Thank you again for the referral. Can I take you out for a cup of coffee? Expressing gratitude to those people who help you along the way that's nurturing your network. It's really important. So you want to make sure you're connecting to people, and not just when you're in job search and desperate. It's kind of like training for a marathon. You don't just go running the day of the marathon, right? That never worked for anybody. Oh, I'm going to go run 26 miles today. You're not in shape, right? You're not used to it. So networking is like that. You need to keep up and keep practicing, jogging, walking, whatever it is, so that when the time comes, you're good and strong. I'll tell you 3 jobs I've gotten because I was so networked. I heard about them through the grapevine, and I just slid right into those jobs without much effort. There was one time where I wasn't even looking, and that job landed on my lap. I had been out of the workforce for 6 years. Martha, let's just do one more shout out for Power Up, and then I'm going to show you what's on the docket for next week and how you can sign up for that too.
So I'm going to put the link in the chat again for the LinkedIn class that we have as part of Power Up in the last week of October. And this is going to be with a career force counselor. Her name is Sandra. She's really awesome. And so if you really want to continue your deep dive into LinkedIn, this is a perfect opportunity to do that. And you can check out all the other things that are happening during that week as well. I'm ready to go use LinkedIn in a new way. It's so funny because you talk about, Megan, using it to reach out to people you don't know. I really use it to keep track of people I have met. Like I go to an event, somebody gives me their business card. I think, I want to remember who this person is, and I'll go friend them in LinkedIn. And I do prefer back to it.
That's great. And that also speaks to, your thinking ahead too. You're nurturing your network. That's great. That's great. Love it. So next week we have resumes and cover letters. I'm going to go over, actually have 2 HR professionals. One who was a former VP at Fairview in the HR department, and one was a VP of human resources at a local manufacturing company. And they're going to be talking about resumes and cover letters from that employer point of view. So you're going to hear much less from me and more from, their names are Karen and Shannon.